What's up, FPL Nation? Glad to have you back on the FPL Fantasy channel. We are today talking about the great debate, luck versus skill. Today, I have with me my co-host, Doc. Doc, would you like to introduce yourself?
What's up, guys? This is Doctor again, and welcome to another episode of the FPL Fantasy. This is the big debate. We have made this episode to put the debate to bed. Get it done with. Is FPL skill or FPL is luck or a mixture of both? Joe?
I would just like to say, even if we come to a definitive answer, no matter what, I will still be making sure to put in this thing was all about luck in every single channel episode from here on out. So you're not going to stop me. So as you probably figured from that comment, I am going to be on Team Luck today. Doc is on Team Skill. It's very much within our personalities that we have within the channel. Doc is very much more the stats and analytical side of things. I tend to be a little bit more creative, a little bit more free form and dangerous. So, Doc, would you like to present your argument for skill?
Before presenting any argument, it's basically a chat between you and me, but I have a couple of caveats or a couple of kind of disclaimers before getting into my points. I would like to say that yes, I understand that this season and the previous season has more luck involved due to illnesses, postponements. However, my argument will be kind of in general, let's say, without taking the illnesses effect into consideration, because it's all of a sudden you see someone misses out or a game gets postponed due to an outbreak or something. So my arguments will be kind of in general. Let's say I'm arguing pre 2019 or hopefully after this all those waves finish. So kind of those are my arguments. And also I'm not arguing that is fully skill. I'm gonna make my arguments that is more skill. It's let's say 51% to 99% skill. It's not 100% skill, and that's my argument. So I think Joe and I should assign kind of percentages what we think, how much of it is skill and how much of it is luck. We have put a poll out. What do you think about the poll, Joe?
I think the poll's a sham. It says that skill is what everybody thinks more. I think it should be luck. There's a couple people that said 50-50. You can't you can't play the middle ground. Choose, please.
Joe, would you like to start or?
You go ahead. You dive right in. I want to get all your facts out there on the table.
Right. My first argument and the main argument that I have in mind is the record of people. I'm going to put on the screen right now a couple of people that I think their record is just ridiculous. For example, Fabio. He's famous in the FPL community. Majority of people think he's probably one of the best manager, if not the best manager in the world, FPL manager. You also have Yavuz Kabuk and you have the famous Mark Southern. So pause the video to watch their record, or I can put them in the description down below. And if you can see from their record, they're consistently in the top 10K, they're consistently in the top 100K, and they're doing amazingly every year, year in, year out. And if there was more luck involved, you're not going to see this pattern. You can go to live FPL/elite. I believe the link is, I'll put also the link in the description below, and you can see the top 1,000 managers in FPL. Live FPL decided those managers according to a specific formula, but you can see the consistency of those managers in the history of FPL, and you can see in their history that they've always been the top 100K, 200K worst case scenario. So you can see that they have been consistent all the time, and they wouldn't be consistent if it was just more luck based. Joe?
I appreciate your argument in specifying those specific figures within the community because I would agree in the aspect of yes, they do have more skill, but not necessarily more skill as FPLers and about the game specifically, but more skill on how to handle and navigate luck within the game itself. And one of the things that I think is from day one, everybody starts out with 100% luck, and you slowly chip away at that. Because when you first open up the FPL app, I know I was like this. I didn't have any resources or nowhere to go for any statistics. So I might as well have just hit auto pick all my players and just left that team and thought that that was good enough because I'm looking at these names. I've hardly heard of any of them before. So they do have more skill, but I think it is an outlier to use them. Look, FPL is all about skill because of these guys, because those guys have played for years. A lot of them have been content creators for years and have been on some of these big channels, and they have a better idea on how to navigate the luck and the variance that is thrown at us as FPL managers.
To counter argue here, Joe, you basically argued for the skill, right? Because they can navigate the luck. Because if you argue that it's a game of luck or it's more luck based, and the skill trumps that luck that the game automatically brings with it, or the variance that the game brings with it, if they are very good at navigating that, you're basically saying skill trumps luck, doesn't it? And also, I want to kind of refer, because it's kind of a segue to my next argument, which is I made some academic research. Me being coming from academia, it automatically I want to do that. And there was an article written by O'Brien, Gleeson, and O'Sullivan. You see it on the screen right now, and I'll put it in the description. And they argued that good managers even made good decisions before a ball was kicked. So before the season began. So when you mentioned the argument that at the beginning of the season is more luck based. Yes, it is. It might be a higher luck position because you don't have the statistics or the background of some players, but this is where the skill comes, where they made their research, where they check who plays for the newly promoted teams and how they play and the manager's philosophy. All those come into play when you're deciding your game week one team.
Yeah, I think those higher elite managers, they might be able to navigate luck a little bit easier than the mass majority of them. But when I get into some of my arguments, you'll see some situations where we all get roasted or we all get burnt on those decisions. And I think some managers can definitely tick skill into their favor, but I think for a majority of all of us, we are all very susceptible to luck more than we are necessarily skill. And my argument isn't necessarily that luck is 100%. Like the game is all luck. I would actually argue that the ratios are thin hairs. And a lot of these managers that are landing in, your top 1K, top 10K, year in, year out, I think if skill would end up being 100% all the time, they'd basically nail the spot that they're in and they would push out all of these new players. And that's not necessarily what we always see. Now, yes, they do normally hit a very high rank, but if, say, Fabio had, say, 100 was his rank, year one. If it was purely a skill based game, or a very, very high skill based game and a very low luck based game, I can tell you that they're going to place 100, 110, 90 every single year because not only are they using skill and not only are they skilled, but everybody else around them has skill also. And we're not seeing that. If you look at a lot of the history of managers, yes, some of them go up to like within the top 100 or within the top 1000 or top 100K year in and year out. And in the grand scheme of things, when we're looking at 9.2 million people, whatever it is that's playing currently, yeah, that's pretty consistent. But considering that they've done that since the game has had 3 million players, there's a lot smaller percentage there where they were moving up and down and they were going back and forth and even within the season. Now, at the end of the season, you might be top 50, but we're not also seeing the times where luck might have not been in their favor and they might have dropped down to 100K and then they got lucky on a couple punts and differentials and made their way slowly up. Where, yes, there is a little bit of skill that goes into that, but there is a lot of variance that happens at those top ranks where, yeah, if it's 100% skill, so is everybody else. Everybody is using skill to their favor, and there is no differentiation between the ranks, and it's a boring game. And we are all just going to sit here and be like, all right, well, that's that. If we look at aspects like chess, where it is very much a higher skill game, there is a very minute place of luck in there. You do have some people that become world champs year in, year out. It's not always necessarily the same person, but you're always looking at the same people at the top there. They're always going to be the exact same people that are the top 5, top 10. But that variance there is so small. If you think about all the people in the world that play chess and all the people that play chess competitively. And I think that's where my mindset kind of comes in is okay, it's definitely not 100% skill. It's definitely not maybe even 80% skill. There is a decent amount of luck in there that helps managers fit in a certain range of variance within the rank that they're comfortable in or that they feel like they deserve. And it's not just guaranteed. I can't go to Vegas and I can't go, all right, Mark is going to be 50 this year and feel confident in that. Vegas probably doesn't even take that bet, but if they did.
I totally agree with you with so many points you've mentioned, but also it can be used as an argument for skill. For example, I believe skill can get you, let's say, the top 200K with the number of participants we have nowadays, let's say about 9 million, that's 2.5%. So you can get to top 2.5% overall. However, here where luck will start playing its role and variance will start playing its role. So you'll see those managers consistently being in the top 200K, but whether they're going to be, for example, in the top 10K or outside the top 10K, luck and variance will play its role. I admit there is a luck element, but the fact that they are always in the top 200K or the top 2% is the skill argument that you reach there. The same goes for poker, for example. For poker, you always see kind of similar faces in the final table or in the final 100 out of 10,000 people. You kind of see similar faces, but then luck starts playing its role. What next card comes? However, those skillful people are always at the top. They give themselves the best chance to be at the top, and then you hope that luck goes your way. So someone who wins FPL, there is a ridiculous amount of luck, yes, for them to win FPL, but to be in the top 100K requires more skill than luck. Luck plays a role when it comes to the higher ranks and to the variance that your striker misses a penalty, yes, but you chose that striker because he's on penalties, and if he scores it, that variance is huge. The point swings is even bigger. So at the higher ranks, yes, luck starts playing a bigger role. However, to get to those higher ranks, you need more skill. Otherwise, I can just close my eye, choose an autocomplete team, and just go into it and hope to be in the 100K one of those years. So yeah, skill is higher. So your argument, I can kind of twist it and use it for skill because yeah, they're in the top 100K because of their skill, but variance will play its role whether to be in the top 90K or 80K.
And that's the great thing about this argument is there isn't a there isn't a definitive way to look at that. And like my argument for luck can be used as skill. Same vice versa, your argument for skill can be driven over and used for luck. And I think that's why we're talking about it right now. That's why there are articles out there from 2015 on people being like, "Oh, is fantasy sports luck or skill?" It There's such a fine line. And the other thing that I want to make sure, and I'm sure a lot of our viewers will actually agree with this, is it is definitely your perception of moves and plays and how things happen. Because I mean, let's talk about James. Without getting too specific into the season and all that, James is has been on a streak of he got a red card. He's been ones and zeros, like he's programming computers using binary. He then got injured, and a lot of people brought him in, were angry. Looking at it, super unlucky. It was a Chelsea team that is ridiculously firing, at least earlier in the season for sure. They were keeping clean sheets ridiculously. You expected to bring him in and get a ton of points. So you look at that and you go, hey, that's really unlucky. Well, James goes off and gets a 15 pointer because he just goes off one game, and then everybody goes, oh yeah, like look at me, I was lucky. I brought in James, had a couple bad weeks. He's doing great now. I absolutely love him as a player. It was so lucky to bring him in and then get a giant haul like that. Adversely, people will sit there and go, "Well, yeah, it was skill based." You look at the data. James is getting in the attacking half. He came off at 45 minutes last game week. He came off at 53 minutes and got a yellow. He didn't play because he was rotated. So you knew he was due for a haul, and he's hit the post 5 times as a wing back. So you knew that he was due for a haul. And that's my point where I'm like, there is such a thin line between this is luck and this is skill. And I want to make sure that the viewers know that it is so hard to kind of equate that. And also, when you talk to people, very much hindsight is 2020. You have people that are like, "Oh yeah, James was in my team when I was planning out for this game week, when I was going to do my wild card, when the season started. Yeah, he was in my team." Um, and and once again, was it skill to take him out for the 5 weeks that he didn't play or didn't do well, or was it unlucky to take him out when he got a 30-point haul and you were like, "Okay, like I don't know, he's not doing it for me."
I have a couple of counter arguments regarding
Hmm.
this. First of all, the argument I've went through a lot of articles in preparation for this video, especially academic articles, and the vast majority, actually, I haven't come across any article that says it's a game of skill, it's a game of luck more than skill. Majority of the articles were made by lawyers or, especially in the US, because they had to decide if it's a gambling or a skill game based, because how you move the money in the game, how you get rewards, the taxes really affect if it's a game of skill or a game of luck. And I haven't come across one article that said that it's more of a game of luck, right? So scientifically and academically, it has been kind of almost unanimously agreed that it's more of there is elements of luck, there are elements of luck, but it's more of a game of skill. So one of the articles is Jennifer Chu. I'm going to again put it on the screen right now, from MIT, and they found that it's mainly a game of skill. It's mainly because of persistence. You see the same people at the top, and player input. So if you don't fix your team, if you make a team with autocomplete in game week one, it's not going to do as well as much you put as much as you put input in, right? Again, I urge people to go read those articles. They're very interesting. So that's number one. Regarding James, yeah,
I was just going to say you can't trust the American lawyers because they don't make any sense. 100%, because if you play a game and there is an investment within a monetary gain within the game and it's outside of necessarily a casino, if it is a game of luck, now, not a lawyer, not a lawyer, but this is my understanding of it. If it is a game of luck, it is illegal in the United States aside from within casinos. I think there's the like reservations and Las Vegas because anything goes there and everything doesn't matter. Um, so so it, we have games that within FPL that do have a monetary reward that are legal within the United States, but they aren't FPL. They're like the Fantasy 5 thing, which is like a different variation on it. And I guess it does in the US, it must play a higher skill based game in order to function legally within the US. And there are some other bigger FPL style games that are very similar that are illegal in the US or we can't participate in the US because they are considered luck based games and there's a monetary reward after it. That's my that's my argument to the American lawyers. Like I said, they don't make any sense. Why is it different that it's on a reservation in a casino or it's in Las Vegas? I don't know. I don't pray to those gods that make the stuff make sense. But there's that. That's my point for the lawyers. Sorry, any
I'm not gonna
American
disagree.
lawyers out there. My bad. My bad. Yeah, I love what you
Hey,
do.
go for him. But also, I'm not gonna really disagree with this point. What I'm gonna disagree with is the basis of this argument, because if you go read the articles, especially the first article that I mentioned by O'Brien, Gleeson, and O'Sullivan, they look into FPL specifically, and the methodology is important when you're looking at the methodology, whether how it biased, how it can be biased. They are published in peer-reviewed journals, so. For example, the first article that I mentioned, they reviewed the top million managers in FPL, and it's all based on statistical analysis. There is no input from anybody to decide whether it's a skill based or a luck based. But I also want to take you back to the argument about James that you mentioned earlier.
Hmm.
My argument is in James's case, one of the arguments that I have in mind is kind of when the skillful managers play the game, they play the probability. So when you take a specific case like James, or you take any specific case like Bowen versus Antonio, of course, this specific case will have more variance in it because you are playing the probability. And when you flip a coin, for example, once, right, it's going to be heads or tails. And if you flip it 10 times, there is a possibility that it will be one of the sides only for 10 times. But if you flip it a million times, a billion times, it will move more towards the 50%, right? The same happens with FPL. The skillful managers play the probability. So you can make and you play the variance. So you can make good decisions consistently. Eventually, you will win on the longer period of time, and that's my argument. Because, like I said, you can buy next week. You can buy Rodri, or you can buy Kevin De Bruyne, right? Probably Kevin De Bruyne will, over the long term, outscore Rodri. But next game, Rodri can score a screamer, and Kevin De Bruyne gets off injured in the 15th minute, and you can say, "Hey, look, FPL is more luck based," but that's not the argument because you win over 38 weeks, you win over 10 seasons, 15 seasons. That's why you take the longer term measurement rather than the shorter term. I can make any argument about luck in one game week um, situation because we have this game week, for example, Dennis got sent off, but over the longer period of time, he's outscoring King, your favorite thing to happen. So,
Yeah.
um, so this is where it comes. The skill is over a longer period of time. You cannot take one case and say, look, how luck and how variance is big. So yeah, if you take it over a longer period of time, the skillful managers will come across because if you take it over a short, if the skillful managers will do well because if you take it on a shorter period of time, kind of the luck element will appear more. So over one game week, you can see more luck. Over 38 game weeks, you can see more of the skill. Also, with the James argument, I have a feeling, it's a personal feeling, I haven't kind of researched it. It will be nice for someone to research it. I have a feeling that people tend to, and as you mentioned, people tend to say, oh, I did, when they do well, they say, I did it. And if they do bad, they kind of blame luck and say FPL is all luck. You kind of look for an external element. Um, you can. You can see that when deadline passes and when you already made your transfer, and as soon as the deadline passes, you kind of know you have this weird feeling. Okay, I'm gonna have a good game week here, or I'm gonna have a bad game week, or damn, that was a bad transfer, or damn, that was a good transfer because you know it. And when it goes bad, you'll probably end up feeling like the luck is going against you. But over a longer period of time, like I mentioned, you'll find that more skillful managers, and I'm not saying I'm a skillful manager, I'm just arguing for them, more skillful managers will kind of persevere and beat this variance.
So I would love to agree with you on the um, skill thing. And like I was talking about, perception of, hey, this game week, this guy didn't do well. For this game week, I would love to agree with you that it was all about skill. Um, every single I had Dennis get a -2 as my captain, and literally everybody else on my team got 2 points. Every single person got 2 points. So I would like to say it's their lack of skill that led to my bad game week, and it's unlucky for me because I brought in studs that have no skill. So I I'm willing to rest the case, agree it's skill. Let's move on. Let's clip the video, call it a day.
But again, see, you're contributing to the argument of a
Yeah,
1 week
yeah.
narrative, right? So when you
Oh yeah.
when you observe 1 week, there is more probability you're going to see more variance and more skill-based conversation. But if you go on a longer period of time, it's more skill-based. Also, I have an argument that people might not like, but it's kind of an argument. But FPL is also kind of don't literally quote me like that, but kind of like painting. So if you don't know how to paint, or you've never painted ever before, you've never drawn anything, you've never painted, you think about it as of like, oh, just take the brush, take some colors, and just draw, right? Or just paint because you have never tried it. So I think people who haven't played on the higher level, they don't understand how structure works within FPL, how hits work, how planning for long-term versus short-term punts work. When you don't know, when you haven't tried that high level of analysis and trying to find the skill gap in FPL, you kind of do not know how hard it is to do, if you know what I mean. Like I said, let's say carpentry. I've never done carpentry, and every once in a while I think, okay, how hard is carpentry? Just put a couple of pieces of wood, couple of nails, and you're done. You have a chair, right? But once I hold a piece of wood, and once I hold the hammer, and once I hold the nail, I feel like, okay, now I can see the skill that has gone into building this table or building this chair, because now I have tried it. I have a feeling once you discuss with people on a high level, high skill level, once you discuss it with Mark Southerns, for example, um, and go into the conversation and how he thinks and how he analyzes the game, you realize, and you try to apply it to your team, you realize how difficult it is to achieve this kind of level of skill because it is difficult.
Yeah.
What do you think about that, Joe?
I I would like to say that it's hard to use uh, painting and carpentry as examples because painting is
Yes.
such a weird thing. The whole joke with art is, there's a group of people that ooh and ah over a red dot on a white canvas, and it's called like the red Sunday or something like that, and people are like, oh, it's like you can see the hair in the snowstorm. No, that doesn't make sense. I can put a red dot on a white canvas, and you'll be like, that's not art. So that's some art is stupid. I don't understand it. It's just dumb to me. the the thing is with carpentry, I agree that it's very much a high skill thing, but I also agree that it's not a high luck. Um, uh,
I'm not talking
but
about the result. I'm talking about the process of thinking that goes into it. And my argument
mm,
is until you try something on a high skill level, you do not know how hard it is. Okay, let me
mm,
rephrase what I'm trying to say. Let's take FIFA, for example. You and I, we just go start a console and we start playing FIFA against each other, right? If I'm skillful enough, right, and I play against you and I'm more skillful than you, more than ever, there is more chance I will beat you over 100 games. You might beat me once, right?
mm-hmm,
So I will win 99 games, but you will see this once as a win because luck kind of and variance during that 10 minutes game kind of persevered, right? But 99% of the time I will win. However, when I go and play against a higher level of skill versus me, or on a similar level, if I play against someone who's on my level, right, it will be a 50-50. Here where luck will start playing its role even more than if I'm playing someone who's on a lower level. So in order to get better, I need to enhance this level of skill. So if I go to the best player in the world and I sit down with him or her and tell them, teach me how to get more skillful. And once they teach me, once I sit down with those people and they teach me how to play FIFA better, I will decrease this level of variance and I will probably beat you 100 times out of 100 times next try, if you know what I mean. So
Yeah.
do not
Oh
take
yeah.
my words literally, it's just kind of
Yeah.
metaphorically.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I see what you're saying, and that's why I think that there's a lot of uh, correlation between poker and FPL. How many poker players have played FPL and talk about the correlation between the two and how a lot of their mindsets from poker have carried over to FPL. But you know, they do say very much the same thing of there is poker is a high skill, high luck game. They will openly admit it. And they do say, hey, if I'm a professional poker player, there is a reason why I'm a professional poker player. Because, you know, going back to my original thing of they have they have the skill set to try and manipulate that luck within their own favor. And I don't think that there is necessarily a sort of game out there that can really create a not necessarily pure, but a high luck, very low skill set. You have simple games, obviously. Rock paper scissors. We could play rock paper scissors right now, and you could beat me 300 times, or we could play rock paper scissors. I could beat you 300 times. There's not there. There is a little bit of a skill in there, but 9 times out of 10, it's going to end up being a very luck based thing. And I am coming from the thing of I don't think that luck has a huge advantage within FPL. And going back to the James thing, like you had mentioned, you know, don't look at it in a 1 week sample size. And statistically, one singular sample size is I took a sample of one person. I took a sample of one game week. It's horrible for statistics. It doesn't make sense. Obviously, you're going to look at it and be like, this is it. I ended up leaning towards James very much because we do have a bigger than one game week sample size. And yes, FPL is a 38 game week game. But there's now I don't think there's a player in the game that will be held for 38 game weeks and you can say, hey, this is like that's the guy. You know, Salah had to go to AFCON. Otherwise, he might have been the guy that was like, hey, this is zero luck, zero skill. Just put him in your team and it's fine. Um, but but I think looking at my point was with James was looking at like a 4 or 5 game week period. If you include his injury in the red card within this last season, you can look at what maybe a 10 game week period where yeah he got maybe 2 hauls, 3 hauls, but a majority of his stuff was very unfortunate. Some would say unlucky. Uh, where he gets a red. Okay, you got negative points on that. He's pulling zeros and ones. That's unfortunate. And then he comes back and gets 15 points. I I completely understand the sample size, and I also know that your argument is going to be, well, you can't look at singular players over a full 38 game week period because, like I had mentioned, there there's nobody you're going to hold for 38 game weeks, whether it's blanks, whether it's bad form, whatever. That does create a certain sense of luck also. We have seen it in these recent seasons where the template, especially in the beginning, starts out very similar. Everybody's team is, if you go on, uh, everybody's team is essentially 80% template, if anything. When we had AFCON this year, all of a sudden the template exploded and blew up. And your higher end managers, maybe they figured it out, maybe they dropped in rank. Who knows? I know for me, it's been a nightmare. I've 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 dropped 130,000, and I think, and I don't think I made any bad transfers necessarily. I think they were good transfers, bad outcome, which I look at that and it plays into much more of a well, the luck just wasn't there. And the looking at the statistics, because that's what we do. We look at statistics because that tries to help us make more informed, more skilled decisions. But those skilled decisions sometimes don't work, and that is, I feel like, a lot of where the the luck comes in. And looking at discerning the decisions and skilled choices as luck, there was a song, I don't know, 15 years ago, 10 years ago. Who knows? I'm old enough that everything seems like it was 5 years ago at this point. Uh, Fort Minor. Remember the name?
Yeah,
Yeah?
yeah. I actually tweeted FPL is 10% luck, 20% skill, 15%
Y-
concentrated power of will,
Yeah.
5% pleasure,
So,
50% pain. It's definitely 50% pain.
yeah, yeah. So my argument is, okay, 10% luck. All right. Luck has 10%. Put that on the board. Skill, 20%. Skill has 20% skill has 20% in its corner. Put that on the board. 15% concentrated power and will. I concentrate really hard. I try to will good choices in and it doesn't work out. All right, so that is 25% for luck. So 5% pleasure when luck goes in my favor, 5% pleasure. So 30% for luck, 20% for skill, and uh, 50% pain. That's when luck isn't in my favor and I'm unlucky. So it looks like 80% luck and 20% skill. Fort Minor figured it out for us. I'm I rest my
That's the
case.
equation.
Yeah, mic drop. There we go.
That's a good argument, especially when you're quoting Fort Minor. Yes, I see your point, but also kind of again, you argued for the skill argument because you mentioned something about the template, and I'd like to say that you can argue that template is formed is because top tier managers kind of made similar good decisions at various points of time of the season, and they independently arrived at a common conclusion
Yeah.
for a core set of players that they view as crucial, right? And this is also in the article that I've been mentioning. So template is a reason, is a proof that it's a skill-based game. People don't know what transfers kind of top tier managers will do prior to the game week, especially before social media comes in and everything, right? But there has been always some sort of a template at the specific points of the season. 7 game weeks, you have a template, and then it just collapses for 3, 4 game weeks, and we go back to a template again and repeat. That's because top tier managers have reached kind of an agreement without talking to each other that okay, this is the best case scenario, and that's a proof of skill because you have unlimited, not unlimited, but you have hundreds of options of players you can bring in, but people kind of decide to bring the same player at the same specific time because they see the fixtures, they see the underlying stats, they eye test pass and the whole thing, and that's the skill part. Otherwise, you just, like I said, Man City has easy fixtures, just bring Rodri.
Well,
um,
I would say, like, yes, that is definitely some extent a argument for skill for you. Uh, I think that's where the my 45, 49, whatever percent skill, that's where that sits, is in that template. And I think it's also very much a group think too, because I don't know if you're familiar with this, but there's a platform out there called Twitter, and there are FPL players on it, I believe. I've heard rumors about it. And at the beginning of the season, everybody's tweeting out the same team, and then there's a preseason game, and one guy goes, "Oh well, I don't know, Bruno Fernandez looked good again. Like he looked relevant with Ronaldo." And all of a sudden, everybody's like, "Oh my God, Bruno's great again. Bring in Bruno. Throw Ronaldo out the window. Bring in Bruno." We're even seeing this in the current subset of game weeks within the season of everybody's rushing to Bruno Fernandez again. And some of it is skill, some of it is groupthink, which is
which
I,
is also a skill.
I
Because you can see all over Twitter everybody transferring in Bruno Fernandes and doesn't or Fernandes, and you don't have to do it.
yeah,
But
no,
you, with the current information that you received, you think that will be the best choice.
yeah,
So that's the skill part. You're actually researching. If I see 10,000 managers on Twitter transferring in Bruno, and I don't believe that's the good transfer, I'm just not gonna do it just because 10,000 people did it online, and I keep seeing it on my timeline. I've never played the game that way,
it,
and I know many of the top tier managers try not to let Twitter affect
it
their decisions.
yeah, and it is very much a fear of missing out type of transfer is more what I'm getting at, and I don't look at fear of missing out as necessarily a skill. I'm also not sure that I look at it as luck, depending on why everybody's bringing in the person either. It sits in that nebulous gray area for me of, well, everybody else has the dude, so I want it too. And I know our big discussion here is very much focused on looking at the top tier teams, but a lot of lower ranked people are just making decisions off of lower rank higher people in the millions. Depending on how you understand that, people in the millions are making a lot of their decisions based off of what El Doctor says. And if he's like, "Oh, Bruno's looking good," people are like, there might be people out there that are like, "Hey, he said he looks good. I'm gonna
Joe,
bring him in."
Joe, if that's the case, why are they in the millions? Why aren't they in the top 10K?
Well, they're making those moves because they didn't. They're not playing the game right. Really, is how I
That's
look
the
at
skill
it.
part then.
Eh, That's the skill part, but I have a hard time sitting there and saying that you play the game with skill by copying other people, because that's not really skill, and those people's choices can also not pan out, and who knows. It's I know it's one of those scenarios where it feels like, or it looks like, hey, I kind of back myself into, yes, this is a skill thing, but it's very much like I look at it as managers using. I
That's my mic drop.
Yeah, yeah, no, I know.
Actually, here it is. Bye, Joe.
Oh, there it is. No, it's one of those hard things because I'm like, it's not.
Joe, let me save you here, yeah,
Yeah,
because I won, obviously.
maybe.
Okay, let's say after all this argument, let's
Yeah,
try wrapping this up in the next, hopefully, 1 hour, because you and I end
yeah,
up chatting for another 3 hours.
yes,
Um, After all this argument and after all this talk and after all this debate, I have other points I would like to make, but I don't think
sure.
we really kind of have much time. Otherwise, people would just get bored of us. Let's say you had to put a percentage now. How much of FPL is luck and how much of FPL is skill? Take into consideration the debates we've just made.
See, this is dangerous because my general mindset is luck is much greater in recent times than it has
Don't
been
disagree.
in the past.
That was that was my disclaimer. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and this is the thing of like I think there is a higher percentage of skill within there, but luck is catching up currently.
Because
Currently,
of those postponements. Let's say those
yes,
postponements
yes.
stop, and we
Well,
decide to kind of
yeah,
live with this illness normally, right?
yeah.
Let's say next season there will be no postponements due to illnesses, and anybody who gets ill will be treated like a normal flu, and they will play. And if other people get it, it's fine. Let's say all these illnesses and postponements blow over, right? Because this is a special case. How much would you give it as a percentage, luck versus skill?
I mean, I'd probably give honestly, honestly,
Yeah.
not trying to argue for 100% luck anymore.
I'm sure
No,
that
and I've always felt this way. I think it's very much like a 70-30
for
uh, uh, for skill in
for skill.
favor of skill. If in a
Okay.
normal year, you're looking at
Yeah.
yes, there is a lot of there is a decent amount of skill that goes in there, and luck very much does play into effect. Typically, game week by game week, not necessarily over the course of a whole 38. Um, and that's coming from looking now. Obviously, that's in normal times. Looking at um, like current times, it's much closer. It's like 60-40.
Still for skill.
Still for skill, still for skill
Okay.
because I think there is a lot of and it might even be 55-45 because we have a lot of things in the current situation that create throw things much more in Luck's court. You know, Burnley, if they ever play a game again.
Yeah. Game week 45, we'll see them. No
Yeah,
worries.
yeah. It's weird to say Burnley is the fixture not to target, but it's not because they're good. And that's where my general mindset sits in because I do, as I've mentioned, luck does play a significant factor. And day one, when you very first start playing FPL, you knew nothing about it. It was a cool game, and you liked football, and you wanted to play a game based around it. Besides FIFA, 100% luck. Walking through the door, if you haven't had any exposure to it, any exposure to the data, any understanding on how to use that data in your favor. As you learn and grow, you become a better manager because you have better skill set to help you navigate that luck and put it in your favor. And that's genuinely my thought. That's why you have 9,000 or 9 million player that it's a zombie team now and is dead, but they came in, they didn't know what they were doing. They played 3 game weeks and they're like, "Okay, I'm done now." Now, maybe they come back next year and they have a FF Scout subscription or a Hub subscription or Football Fix or all three, or they get involved in FPL Twitter. They're creating their own skill set and their own ideas, and they're working on combating bad luck. Oh, hey, last year you brought in a bunch of 4.5 forwards and midfielders, and you're like, I don't know why it didn't work. I spent 90 million in my defense. Now you know that's not how that works, and that's where my mindset genuinely sits within this conversation. I do think that there is a much higher percentage of luck than people are willing to give people credit for, but I think I think there is a very high percentage of luck within the game comparatively to
Funnily,
other people.
for the first time during this whole video, I totally agree with you. I absolutely agree with you. Funnily, that I kind of have similar numbers in mind. So if you ask me, I want to add one argument that kind of crossed my mind. I don't like taking specific cases to establish points. It's always for me the power is in numbers, so the sample size and everything. But if you go back to my record, I've been playing FPL for 15 years, and you kind of can weirdly can see milestones in my life, my real life, my actual life in FPL. My worst ranks are usually a milestone that I'm kind of busy. For example, one of the worst ranks I have is when I traveled abroad to do my master's degree. uh, I have a bad rank when in my last year doing my PhD when I'm busy with my thesis. I have a bad rank here or there because I was busy with this. You can see kind of milestones in my life when kind of when
Hmm.
I got married, when I got busy with something, and you can see amazing ranks when I was just a student. Um, for a bachelor's degree, I was going to class 3 hours a day, and then I have the rest of the day just to do whatever I want, and I did well in FPL, for example. So you can see in my record kind of milestones whenever I was busy and concentrating on like my life or concentrating on the game here and there. So I don't like to argue this argument, but I urge our viewers to kind of go and see their ranks and if there are similarities to what I just mentioned. How Going back to the point about numbers, I think weirdly I would give um, by the way, again, going and looking at articles, I was trying to find this magic number. Um, I didn't come across many people who were saying what's the exact number. They were trying to argue if it's more skill or luck. That's it. But I've come across a couple of numbers and 60-40 for skill on articles, on academic articles. So 60-40, so it's quite close. Kind of that's the average that I've noticed. I've seen one which is about 70-30. Um, I would argue it's about 75 to 25 skill. That's my opinion. 75%, and it's based on purely opinion, not based on certain facts or evidence or
Hmm.
numbers or calculations. I think it's 75% skill, 25% um, luck on a normal season without all those postponement and illnesses. Current season is about 65% to 35% luck. It maybe even 60-40. I would give it 60-40 because all of a sudden your match gets postponed. You have three players in that match, so you have virtually no control. Um, but again, there are people literally following airplanes if the player is back from international duty. There are people literally following the list of people who are sick and the list of people who are injured and try to kind of estimate or predict if the match is going to get postponed. And this kind of pushes the skill back. That's why I said kind of 65-35. Joe, shall
Yeah.
we wrap this up?
Well, I was just going to add one more thing to that too. Uh, I know that we've been talking a lot about variance and things like that within the game. Probably should have put this at the beginning of the video, but essentially variance is just it's the spread between all numbers. And one of the issues that we have is, especially in FPL, it's very hard to pin what the variance is and then get all the stats nerds out there the standard deviation off of the variance, which the standard deviation, I'm not going to get into algorithms and all that, but essentially it helps us pinpoint some sense of consistency within the the data set that we have. Now there are some issues that come into that where it does account and give a fair amount of weight to outliers, but this is some of the calculations, and I don't know in your research, Doc, but I know in my research a lot of it was discussing what is the variance and how you can help calculate it. And I think I had forgotten at the beginning of the video when we were talking about poker a little bit, but I do have a poker variance calculator, and as we said, poker is very much uh, uh, in line with the skill and luck set that FPL has. So I don't know if Doc, you might want to throw a screenshot of it on the screen right now, but there will also be a link down below for you guys to go to so you can play with it in all, like I said, all the stats nerds. You can have at it. You can look at your graphs and crunch the numbers, and maybe you can find the magic number for everyone.
Thanks for that, Joe. I'll put a screenshot like I mentioned, and I'll put
Hmm.
in the description below before we put up this video live.
So guys, moral of the story: FPL is only luck. Don't let Doc convince you otherwise. Um,
Can you imagine just someone tunes in at this point and it'll be like, really? This hour they've been discussing and it's all luck?
what do these guys have to say? FPL is only luck. Okay. but but on a serious note, thank you so much for listening. Make sure that you like and subscribe on this video and on our page. We have a ton of videos that are in our backlog. Some of them might help you in the future. Our last video that we had was a effective ownership video. Might be very interesting to some of you people, so make sure to go back, listen to that. We explain kind of what effective ownership is and situations in which it might be able to help you within your FPL team. And trying to think if there's anything else that I missed. I don't think so. Doc, anything you'd like to say to the people or plug?
Well, I hope they enjoyed this kind of podcasty style feel of our video. It's kind of the second video we do it kind of podcast style because I think the first video was with Reeve. It was our third
Hmm.
ever video on the channel. So if you enjoy this, drop a thumbs up. Let us know in the comments if you enjoy this kind of videos or you prefer those short, get to the point videos that we usually do. Let us know. Please subscribe. We're trying to hit 100 subscribers before the end of this game week. So if you enjoy our content, drop a sub. It's free and we'll really appreciate it. It really helps out. And we'll see you everybody on the next episode.
For sure. See you, everybody. Thanks for listening. Peace.